storytellers. So his presentation was a combination of him playing and sharing some amazing stories from his boyhood in the United Kingdom and his discovery of Paraguayan music and Paraguayan guitar music in particular. Oh, it was wonderful.
It was. You know, I remember for Richard, it was like music was a kind of, I'm going to say, salvation for him. In a sense, music made the difference in his life. I mean, from a kind of a normal boyhood, but kind of humdrum as well. I mean, music really made the difference. It helped him to become a leader in his own life, and in turn, he became a leader, making a difference in the lives of so many other people. Yeah. I mean, another session that really touched me was about how music, in this case it was singing, helped to liberate the presenter.
Oh, yes. I
mean, another kind of salvation when you think about it. I mean, this woman, who happens to be a dear friend of ours, right, had been really suffering emotionally, physically, and psychically. I mean, her soul was sick. Okay, psychically in that kind of sense, right? Her doctors had diagnosed her with rheumatoid arthritis, but true to her nature, she refused. I mean, she refused that diagnosis. Now, her body showed all the signs and symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis, but she said, I am not my diagnosis. So she used the arts of storytelling, the arts of drama, the art of piano playing and song making to share with us her path of healing. And she discovered, I mean, one of her mission points along her healing journey was to find her own song, literally her own song and her own voice. And her voice and finding her own voice, finding her own song was what really set her body, her emotional body, her physical body, her psychic body free.
Yes, it did. Gloria, I know you talk quite frequently about daring to wear your soul on the outside.
Yes, I do. And I even have a book.
Yes, you do. And during this session, the presenter actually said the same thing.
Absolutely.
And rightly so. She gave you credit for helping her on her path to healing, which I know made your heart sing.
Well, it was a very special presentation by a very special person in my life and our life.
Yes.
And speaking of special, we didn't get to attend one of the sessions that featured music, and specifically the power of silence in music, the power of silence, because it was actually happening during one of the other sessions that we were co-leading.
That's right.
But I love that notion, thinking about the power of silence in music. I mean, if you just had the musical notes played all the time with no pauses, with no rest, with no silence, it would just sound like a wall of noise, wouldn't it?
Right, it would.
I know for leaders, silence can be a wonderful resource. Well, we could just go on and on and on talking about these sessions, couldn't we?
It's so invigorating.
I love it. I know. It's so just makes my heart sing.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost out of time for today. And we've only covered just a small fraction of the many, many wonderful moments and wonderful sessions of the conference. But there's one more session I want to mention. And this session was led by, it's co-led by a dear, dear friend, a fellow I used to work with years ago, back when we co-designed and co-taught in a number of leadership institutes for different clients. So he and a friend of his co-led just an amazing session on the importance of art for leaders.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that stands out for me are two quotes that they used toward the end of their session. And the first quote is by a fellow by the name of Eric Trist. Now, Eric is the founder of the Tavistock Institute. And for those of you who may not know, Tavistock is very highly regarded and quite notable in the world of organizations and organizational development and leadership development. So Eric Trist says quite simply and eloquently how influential novels were. Novels, fiction, were in his development versus social science. Now, that's a pretty simple statement on the face of it, right? Okay, novels were more influential in his development than social science. But it's really powerful when you know that this is coming from a renowned social scientist. I mean, he kind of wrote the book on groups and group process and organizational and team development, right? Another quote that I remember is one from Vladimir Nabokov, right? And he reminds us, Nabokov reminds us, that we should always remember that a work of art is invariably the creation of a new world. So that the first thing we should do is to study that new world as closely as possible, approaching it as something brand new, having no obvious connection with the worlds we already know. Now, that's an amazing quote.
That is.
I'm going to read that quote again because it's so profound. This time, when I say the word art, I want you listeners to substitute the word person, because we too are beautiful works of art, just like a novel or short story or film or painting, right? So when I read it again, when I say the word art, I want you to substitute the word person, okay? Here we go. We should always remember that a work of art, a person, is invariably the creation of a new world. So that the first thing we should do is to study that new world, that person, as closely as possible, approaching that person as something brand new, having no obvious connection with the worlds we already know. Lovely, isn't it? You know what? If we just took that one quote to heart, we would have a different world.
That's right.
We would have a different world.
Yeah.
We'd certainly have different organizations. Our communities would be different. Our families, our relationships would be different. The arts are so vital to us as individuals, to our families, to our communities, to our nations, and to our world.
Amen.
Mercy. John, I just want to thank you for sharing my love of the arts, your love of the arts, with me, with our listeners, and I want to thank you for being on the show with me today. I mean, what a treat.
Yes.
What a treat, really. Maybe we can do another show together sometime. What do you think?
I agree. I'd love to. Thank you. It was a great show, and I've loved being a part of it.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I want to wrap up our time together today with a grace note from one of my favorite books, and that book is called Triumph of the Soul. Triumph of the Soul. Now, this amazing book is by Ferdinand and Art Jones, and they have this to say about the arts. And although they're speaking specifically here about music, I believe they could be speaking about any of the arts. Here's what they have to say. According to the ancient scriptures, oral and written, of people worldwide, one of the main purposes of music in life is to lead to uplift and enlightenment, to establish and maintain moral consciousness and responsibility, and to assist in the continued spiritual evolution of humanity. Today, too many of us in the West and the rest of the world have lost sight of the real purpose of music and have relegated music to the mundane role of entertainment and marketing, rather than pursuing the higher purposes of this precious art. Wow. Great stuff, right? So, today we've been talking about the love of the arts and specifically about love and leadership. We've been talking about the power of the arts to make a difference. Who knows? Maybe today will be your day. Maybe today will be the day when you harness the power of the arts to make a difference in your own life and in the lives of others. Now, let me tell you something. You don't have to sing. You don't have to dance. You don't have to know how to play an instrument or be a poet or a painter to be an artist. You simply have to realize that you are designed in the image of the greatest artist there ever was, the great creator. You are an artist because that's who God designed you to be. So, how will you harness the power of the arts? Maybe it's the power of your own story and share it with somebody else. Yep, that's right. Story is an art. And telling your story, sharing your story, makes you an artist. Living and loving makes you an artist. All right. Let's continue to celebrate the majestic music of your life, the majestic story of your life. And I want to personally celebrate you for making your life count. Now, if you missed last week's show or any part of this week's podcast, you can listen to the recording at your convenience. You can even listen to it on the go. Check us out at www.talknetworkradio.com/legacyliving.html. That's www.talknetworkradio.com/legacyliving.html. That's LEGACYLIVING.html. In addition to listening to us on the TNR Talk Network Radio website, you can also find us on Alexa, on iTunes, on Spreaker, and so many more places. Now, before I close today, I want to thank each of you for tuning in to my show, for allowing me to share a bit about my journey with what legacy living is all about. Not just living and learning, but living and learning and serving so that you make a difference in your own life and in the lives of others. It's about being on purpose every single day, 365, 24/7. Legacy living is one of the many ways to make your life count. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess. Please join me again next week right here on Talk Network Radio for another show of Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. We're here again next Wednesday, 10 a.m., right here, Talk Network Radio. Don't just count the days in your life. Make the days in your life count. That's what legacy living is all about. Have a fantastic day, and remember, make the days in your life count. God bless you. That's our show today. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess. I hope you'll join me again next week. Until then, don't just count the days in your life. Make the days in your life count. That's what legacy living is all about. Here's to you. Have a fantastic day. Be sure to make